On a quiet morning deep in the forest, a mother bobcat stood guard over her den, where her newborn cubs lay helpless and unaware of the dangers around them. The sense of peace was suddenly shattered when a massive snake silently slithered closer, carrying a deadly threat toward the sleeping young. In that instant, a mother's instinct awakened, turning fear into raw strength. But what happens when a wildcat must face an enemy far more dangerous than herself? Is courage alone enough to overcome venom and overwhelming power? The life and death struggle that followed was not merely a clash of claws and fangs, but a powerful testament to the sacred bond of motherhood that defies all limits. That single decisive moment would forever shape the fate of a small family in the heart of the wilderness. Before we dive into this intense and breathtaking story, please like the video if you're moved by the strength of a mother's love. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss more emotional wildlife stories like this one. A mother's roar, a serpent's hiss, and 3 tiny lives on the edge. Deep within the ancient whispering forest, where the shadows stretched long and the air hung heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth, Luna, a fierce bobcat mother, found herself in a life-or-death struggle. Her instincts, usually a sharp blade, had been blunted by the sheer unholy surprise. A colossal python, a predator from the deepest, most unseen corners of the shadows, had ambushed her. Its scales, dull and patterned like the very ground it slithered on, were now a suffocating shroud. Her 3 fragile kits, barely more than blurs of spotted fluff, whimpered from their hiding spot beneath a thicket of ferns, their tiny cries a desperate, agonizing counterpoint to the growing pressure around their mother. Luna fought valiantly, a blur of claws and teeth, but the python's power was relentless, an unyielding, tightening vice. Every breath became a luxury she couldn't afford, every muscle scream a betrayal. The forest, usually a symphony of rustles and chirps, had fallen silent, holding its breath for the inevitable. A primal terror, cold and sharp, pierced through Luna's haze of pain. It wasn't just her own life slipping away, but the future of her kits, dependent, vulnerable. The thought of them alone, defenseless against the indifferent cruelty of the wild, jolted her with a desperate new surge of adrenaline. She clawed, she bit, she twisted, but the python was a living steel trap, its coils drawing tighter, squeezing the very air from her lungs. The world began to dim, the vibrant greens and browns of the forest blurring into a single, suffocating canvas of despair. A warm, sticky wetness matted her fur, a chilling testament to her losing fight. With her strength waning, her body failing, Luna let out a guttural cry of desperation, a sound tearing at the heart of the wilderness, a final, ragged plea for a miracle that seemed destined never to arrive. The world went black, then fuzzy, then startlingly bright. It was a chaotic symphony of unfamiliar scents and jarring sounds. The python's crushing embrace was gone, replaced by a strange, fleeting pressure, then a sudden, sharp sting in her flank. Her raw, instinctual mind screamed threat, even as the constricting agony of the serpent released its grip. The pain was still there, a dull throb throughout her body. But it was different now, a background hum instead of a deafening roar. She felt herself lifted, gently but firmly, by large, warm hands. Giants. They were giants. Their voices, deep and rumbling, were alien and frightening. Yet there was a curious softness in their tone that didn't quite fit the terrifying spectacle of their size. Panic, a frantic flutter in her chest, warred with a strange, nascent sense of relief. Where were her kits? The overwhelming scent of strangers was everywhere, mixed with a sharp medicinal tang that made her nose twitch. Then a familiar scent, faint but unmistakable, drifted to her. Her kits. They were here. A whimper, tiny and full of confusion, confirmed it. Relief, sudden and overwhelming, flooded her, momentarily eclipsing the fear of the giants. She tried to move to go to them, but her body felt heavy, uncooperative. The giants made soft, clucking sounds, their large fingers brushing against her matted fur. A touch that was surprisingly gentle. despite its unfamiliarity. One giant, taller than the rest, with kind, tired eyes, knelt beside her, speaking in a low, soothing tone she couldn't understand, but instinctively recognized as non-threatening. They moved her, again, and she felt the strange, smooth surface of a table beneath her. A new giant, wearing a white coat and with a quiet, efficient manner, peered closely at her wounds, her touch careful, almost reverent. The sharp sting returned, a brief prick, followed by a warm, spreading numbness that eased the persistent throb. It was confusing, terrifying, yet somehow in the deepest part of her animal brain, a tiny seed of trust began to sprout. The feeling of hunger, a gnawing emptiness, began to assert itself, pushing past the pain and confusion. She hadn't eaten in what felt like an eternity, her body weakened by the fight. A giant placed a small bowl before her, filled with something rich and meaty, that sent a siren song to her famished instincts. She hesitated, her feral nature warning her against accepting gifts from strangers, but the hunger was too strong. Cautiously, she lapped at the offering, the taste a revelation, the texture soft and easily digestible. Each mouthful was a small victory, a step back from the brink. The water, clear and cool, tasted like the purest mountain spring, easing the parched dryness in her throat. She drank deeply, her body soaking in the hydration. The simple act, a luxury she hadn't realized she craved until it was offered. Days bled into a strange rhythm of rest, gentle care, and the gradual fading of pain. The giants, once terrifying, slowly transformed into figures of comfort. They moved with a quiet efficiency, their voices soft, their touch light. She watched them, her eyes once clouded with fear, now sharper, observing their patterns. They brought food, fresh water, and cleaned her wounds with a touch that was almost soothing. Her kits nearby in their own small enclosure mewled contentedly, their bellies full, their tiny bodies safe. The fear, though never entirely gone, receded further with each sunrise. The memories of the python, of the tightening coils and the desperate cry, still clawed at the edges of her awareness. But they were now distant echoes, replaced by the warmth of a soft blanket, the taste of nourishing food, and the strange, quiet comfort of these gentle giants. Her wounds were healing, the bandages now fewer and further between, her fur beginning to regain its former sheen. The sharp sting of the needle was a faint memory, replaced by the soothing warmth of their hands. Trust, a fragile, hard-won bloom, began to unfurl in the depths of Luna's wild heart. The sudden, jarring thud of the truck door echoed through the dense undergrowth, a sound that ripped through Bobcat's already frayed nerves. Her muscles, still aching from the venom and the brutal thrashing, tensed, her ears swiveling. Humans. Again. But these were different. Not the crude, loud shouts of the two legs who'd tried to steal her kits, nor the silent, slithering terror of the giant scale creature. These humans moved with a strange, heavy quietness, their scent a mix of metal and something sharp. Alien. The biggest one, a looming shadow against the pale pre-dawn sky, approached. He smelled of sweat and something else. A deep old sorrow she couldn't interpret but felt instinctively. His voice was low, rumbling, not the sharp barks of the dangerous two legs. He moved slowly, deliberately, in a smaller, lighter two-leg with a softer scent. The one who had knelt and spoken so gently followed behind. Bobcat flattened herself, a low growl vibrating deep in her chest, a warning. Her kits, still nestled against her belly, quivered. The giant scale creature was gone, but the world was still a place of threat. A sudden sharp sting on her flank made her yelp, a surprised, painful sound. Her muscles spasmed. A dart. One of the quiet two legs had moved with surprising speed. Panic flared, hot and sharp, but it was quickly followed by a strange, heavy lethargy. Her limbs felt like lead. Her eyelids grew heavy. She fought it, every fiber of her being screaming to protect her young. But the fight drained from her, leaving her weak and disoriented. The edges of her vision blurred. She felt herself being lifted, gently but firmly, into a soft, dark space that smelled faintly of pine and clean cloth. The last thing she registered was the faint, comforting warmth of her kits being carefully placed beside her, their tiny bodies pressed against hers as the darkness claimed her. When Bobcat awoke, it was to a different kind of world. The darkness was gone, replaced by a soft, diffused light that filtered through what felt like a den. But this was no natural den. The air was clean, sterile, carrying faint scents of antiseptic and something sweet, like dried leaves. She pushed herself up, her limbs still a little unsteady, but the sharp agony in her flank was dulled to a persistent ache. Her tongue darted out, tasting her fur. A strange, bitter film covered it. Medicine. Her kits. Panic, cold and sharp, seized her. She looked around frantically. There they were, huddled together in a small, soft bed just beside her, their small bodies rushing and falling with soft breaths. Relief washed over her, an almost physical wave, leaving her trembling. She nudged them, nuzzled their tiny heads. They mewed softly, blindly seeking her warmth. A gentle thrumming sound vibrated through the floor. The scent of food, rich and meaty, wafted closer. Her stomach, a hollow cavern, growled in protest. Her instincts screamed caution, but the hunger was a powerful force. She saw a bowl, shallow and wide, filled with a dark, glistening substance. It smelled safe. A giant shadow approached the bars of her enclosure, moving slowly. It was the soft-scented two-leg, the one who had knelt. This time, the two-leg's hand, gloved, pushed the bowl closer. No sudden movements, no sharp sounds. Just the low, quiet rumble of a voice. Days blurred into a strange rhythm of healing. The pain in her flank receded, replaced by a dull itch beneath the bandage. The sting of needles, initially terrifying, became a brief, unavoidable discomfort, followed by a soothing warmth that spread through her body. The two legs, initially looming giants of threat, transformed. Their movements were slow, predictable. Their voices, once just noise, began to acquire a soothing cadence. The tall, quiet one, Elias, often sat just outside her enclosure, not looking directly at her, but simply existing, a reassuring presence. He didn't smell of sorrow anymore, but of wood smoke and a quiet, patient strength. One morning, the familiar scent of antiseptic was replaced by something else. Damp earth, pine needles, the crisp tang of fresh air. She was carried again, gently by the soft-scented two-leg, out into a larger open space. The ground beneath her paws was soft, yielding. The sky above was vast, blue, and the sun, warm on her fur, felt like a blessing. Her kits, playful and curious, tumbled out of a smaller crate, their tiny roars attempts at fierce independence. The tall two-leg, Ilyas, watched from a distance, a small, knowing smile on his face. He watched her stalk imaginary prey in the long grass, watched her kits pounce on her tail. The memory of the scale creature, of the poachers, was a fading echo, replaced by the present reality of sun on her fur, the rich smell of the earth, and the joyful squeaks of her growing kits. The fear hadn't vanished entirely, not yet, but it was receding, like a tide pulling back from the shore, leaving behind the solid ground of trust. This new world, built by these quiet, patient giants, was a safe one, a place to heal, a place to truly live. The world had become a maelstrom of confusion and terror for Luna the bobcat. The scent of danger, acrid and ancient, had filled her den, overpowering the familiar warmth of her kits. Her body, usually a symphony of agile power, was now a shield, muscles bunched and trembling. The massive, scaled coil of the python, a nightmare made real, was a crushing weight. Each breath was a struggle, shallow and desperate, the pressure and agonizing vice around her. Her kits, small and vulnerable, mewed with fear behind her, their tiny bodies pressed against her side. Their scent, her scent, was the only thing anchoring her in this spiraling chaos. Then a new smell, sharp and metallic, cut through the air. A giant looming over the struggle. A blur of motion, a sudden scent of antiseptic, and then a strange, burning sting in her flank. Her instincts screamed betrayal, but her body was too exhausted to fight the new attacker. The giants were there, their voices low rumbles, their hands massive and alien, moving with a frightening swiftness. She felt a strange, detached sensation, as if her limbs were no longer entirely her own. Her vision swam, the outlines of the giant becoming hazy, the world tilted. She could only focus on the tiny forms behind her, her precious kits. With a final monumental surge of will, she pushed them, a raw, gasping sound torn from her throat, away from the crushing coils. Her eyes, filled with an ancient maternal love, fixed on them, a silent plea, a desperate farewell. The python's embrace tightened, an ultimate, final pressure, then darkness, profound and absolute. Hope, a fleeting, cruel whisper, arrived just as her world faded. Elias, a giant burdened by his own invisible wounds, had intervened, his movements precise, almost brutal as he subdued the massive snake. But for Luna, it was too late. Her final breath was a selfless act, her body a last, defiant shield. The next sensation was a jolt, a falling, then a strange, warm softness. She was no longer pinned, no longer crushed. The heavy, cold coils were gone. But the overwhelming emptiness, the absence of her kits, was a pain far deeper than any physical wound. The giants, no longer a direct threat, were moving around her, their sense a confusing mix of human and sterile. Her body felt alien, heavy and unresponsive. A dull ache throbbed where the python had constricted her, a phantom pain that echoed the gaping hole in her heart. She registered a new sound, the high-pitched, desperate cries of her kits. They were close, so close, a surge of desperate energy ignited within her, a primal command to rise, to protect. But her limbs wouldn't obey. Her eyes, still heavy, struggled to focus. Days bled into a hazy continuum. The giants were omnipresent, their presence a constant, low-narc thrum in her new enclosed world. The softness beneath her, a thick, clean blanket, became a small comfort. The taste of clean water, offered in a shallow dish, was a revelation after the parched wilderness. She could feel her body slowly responding, the dull ache gradually receding. The sharp prick of a needle was followed by a warmth that spread through her limbs, dulling the edges of her pain. Still, the image of the python, the feel of its crushing coils, was etched into her memory, a constant tremor beneath her skin. And the ache for her kits, an insistent, throbbing void, never truly left. Gradually, painstakingly, trust began to unfurl, like a tentative bloom in parched earth. The giants, once terrifying, began to morph into something else. Their hands, though immense, were gentle. Their voices, once alarming rumbles, became soothing murmurs. The food they offered, always fresh and nourishing, banished the gnawing hunger that had been her constant companion in the wild. She watched them, her keen eyes observing every movement, every subtle shift in their posture. They weren't predators. They were providers, protectors. The memory of the python, the harshness of the wild began to recede, replaced by the warmth of a full belly and the quiet hum of safety. The trauma of the past was still a shadow, but the present, filled with gentle hands and soft blankets, was slowly, painstakingly, pulling her into a new dawn. She found herself one day allowing a giant's hand to rest on her head, her fur rippling under the alien touch, not in fear but in a hesitant acceptance. Elias, cradling the unconscious Luna the bobcat and her terrified kits, raced through the forest. He knew only one place offered a chance, Sarah's sanctuary, a haven for the broken and forgotten. The heavy thud of his boots against the damp earth was a rhythm of desperation. Luna, limp and alarmingly still, was growing colder in his arms. Her kits, tiny bundles of shivering fur, whimpered against her belly, instinctively seeking warmth that wasn't there. He could feel the faint, erratic beat of her heart against his palm, a fragile drumbeat echoing the terrifying truth. She was dying. Luna drifted in a terrifying void. One moment, the searing pain of the serpent's constricting coils, the metallic tang of fear in her own mouth, the desperate guttural snarls as she fought for her babies. The next, a strange, suffocating darkness. She felt herself being lifted, A sudden jolt, then a swaying motion. Her body, usually a symphony of agile power, felt like a sack of rocks, unresponsive. She could hear them, her kits, their tiny distressed cries, but she couldn't reach them, couldn't reassure them. A phantom ache throbbed where the monstrous snake had bitten her, a deep, burning poison seeping into her very core. She smelled the human, a scent that usually triggered an immediate flight response. Now a confusing presence. It was warm, surprisingly gentle for such a large creature, and it moved with a frantic urgency. She felt the vibrations of its rapid strides, the thumping of its heart, a booming drum compared to her own fading flutter. She just wanted to be still, to escape the pain, to curl around her babies and protect them from this new, overwhelming sensation of being helpless. Elias burst through the door of the main clinic building, Sarah already there, her face a mask of grim determination. "Snakebite, I think," Elias choked out, carefully laying Luna on the stainless steel examination table, "and she's fading fast." Sarah didn't hesitate. Her hands, usually so gentle, moved with a controlled fury, a frantic attempt to restart Luna's failing heart. She performed immediate CPR, her palms pressing rhythmically against the Bobcat's chest, her breath exhaling into Luna's mouth in short, sharp puffs. The kits, placed in a small, soft-sided carrier nearby, whimpered louder, their tiny forms pressed together, their wide, dark eyes fixed on their mother, their instincts screaming that something was terribly wrong. A searing shock, a jolt that ripped through Luna's entire body. Her back arched, a strangled gasp escaping her throat. It was pain, yes, a sharp, electric spike, but it was also a spark, a tiny flicker in the suffocating darkness. She felt a strange pressure on her chest, her rhythmic and insistent, then air forced to her lungs. It tasted foreign, thick with the human's scent, but it filled her, pushing against the encroaching emptiness. She was still so weak, so heavy, but the darkness wasn't as absolute now. Vague shapes moved above her, large and indistinct. One of them, the source of the strange rhythmic pressure and the warm breath, leaned close. Its scent was stronger now, a complex mix of something clean and something else. Something comforting. She tried to move, to lash out, but her muscles wouldn't obey. Her limbs felt like lead. A new sensation, a tiny pinprick on her flank, followed by a cool rush, then a subtle dulling of the insistent throb in her side. Hours blurred into a hazy dream of gentle touches and strange smells. The human giants moved around her, their voices soft, murmuring sounds that held no threat. A new, peculiar sensation. Liquid sliding down her throat, cool and sweet, easing the fiery thirst that had parched her for what felt like an eternity. She felt the prick of a needle again, a brief sting, followed by a warm, heavy lethargy that pulled her back into a shallow sleep, free from the crushing pain. She awoke to the soft warmth of a blanket, not the cold, hard earth. Her body still ached, dull throb instead of the burning agony. She could smell them now, her kits close by. A low, rumbling purr, weak but present, vibrated in her chest. She pushed herself up, her muscles screaming in protest, but the primal urge to see her babies was stronger. They were there, in a separate, smaller enclosure, their tiny faces pressed against the mesh, their eyes wide and expectant. Relief, a wave of profound, weary peace washed over her. Over the next few days, the initial fear slowly began to recede, replaced by a cautious curiosity. The giants were relentless in their care. They brought her food, soft and easily digestible, smelling of rich meat. They spoke in soothing tones, their large hands moving with an almost unbelievable gentleness, cleaning her wounds, changing her bandages. The sting of the antiseptic was quickly followed by a comforting coolness. Then the warmth of a fresh dressing. She watched them, her instincts warring with the undeniable truth. These creatures were not predators. They were providers, healers. The terror of the past, the hunger, the constant threat began to recede, replaced by the steady rhythm of safety and nourishment. One of the giants, the one with the soft voice and warm hands, would sit by her enclosure, just watching, sometimes humming. Luna would watch her back, slowly, tentatively, beginning to trust the giant's quiet presence. One afternoon, the giant with the soft voice, Sarah, opened the door to her enclosure. Luna tensed, ready to bolt, but the giant simply sat down, not approaching, just being present. Sarah spoke softly and then slowly extended a hand, palm open, offering a small, delicious-smelling piece of meat. Luna hesitated, her nose twitching, her ears swiveling, assessing the threat. The scent was irresistible. The hand was still. After a long moment, the primal urge for sustenance, the undeniable pull of trust, won. She padded forward, slowly, deliberately, and gently took the offering. The giant didn't move, didn't snatch, just watched with eyes that held no malice, only kindness. The meat was tender, flavorful. As she chewed, a deep, contented rumble started in her chest. The darkness of the forest, the burning pain of the snake's bite, the fear of the unknown, it was all fading. Here in this strange, safe place, with these gentle giants, a new life was beginning to bloom. A life of quiet comfort, of healing, and of something she hadn't known before. Trust. When all hope is lost, a mother's love ignites a miracle. The world had become a kaleidoscope of agony and muted terror for Luna, the bobcat. Her body, once a symphony of sleek muscle and predatory grace, was now a tattered canvas of pain. The massive serpent's coils had squeezed the breath from her, leaving her gasping, her vision swimming in and out of a gray haze. She remembered the frantic fight, the desperate need to protect the tiny, vulnerable warmth of her kits. And then, darkness. She registered the strange, acrid smell of antiseptic, the chill of a hard surface beneath her, and the looming shadows of giants moving around her. Their voices were low rumblings, sometimes sharp, sometimes soft, but always alien, a prick. A sudden, sharp sting in her leg, followed by a strange, numbing warmth spreading through her veins. It was a peculiar sensation, not quite pain, not quite comfort, but a dulling of the insistent throbbing that had consumed her. She felt herself being lifted, gently, onto a softer surface. A thick, rough blanket that smelled faintly of something clean and comforting. Unlike the damp earth and decaying leaves she was used to, even through the haze, the feeling of not being alone, of being handled with a strange, hesitant tenderness, was a new, unsettling experience. Her instincts screamed danger, but her ravaged body only craved stillness. Sarah, her brow furrowed with a worry that etched lines onto her face, watched the bobcat. Luna lay barely alive, her body ravaged, her spirit broken. Despite the antibiotics, the pain medication, the constant monitoring, Luna remained unresponsive. Her breathing was shallow, her amber eyes, when they occasionally flickered open, held no spark, no recognition, only a deep, profound emptiness. Sarah had tried various treatments, carefully administering fluids, offering palatable food, a small dish of raw chicken, even some of the wild berries Luna might have foraging for. But the bobcat turned her head away, a silent refusal. Each day was a battle against the fading embers of life. The world was a blur of discomfort and unfamiliar scents. A strange liquid was forced past her lips, bitter and metallic. More needles, more prodding. She felt no fight left within her, only a desperate longing for the familiar wild, for the rustle of leaves, the damp scent of the forest floor, the warmth of her own den. But those memories were tainted by the terror of the serpent, the crushing grip, the metallic taste of fear. The giants, though they moved with a careful slowness, were still giants. Their large hands, though gentle, were still powerful, capable of pinning her, of inflicting the strange stings. Her instincts, dulled by pain, told her to flee, to hide, but her body betrayed her, refusing to obey. She was a hollow shell, an echo of the fierce mother she once was. Then a new sound, faint, almost imperceptible through the haze of her pain, but utterly familiar. a soft, desperate mewling. It was a sound that reached past the agony, past the fear, straight to the core of her being. Her kits. They were here, a flicker of recognition, a primal stir within her. Sarah, in a moment of intuition, a desperate final attempt to reach the mother beneath the trauma, had placed the 3 mewling kits in a smaller, soft-sided carrier close to Luna's side. The tiny cries, thin and reedy, were like an invisible thread tugging at Luna's shattered spirit. The proximity of her offspring, their fragile cries echoing the depth of her own instinctual love, was a force more potent than any medicine. A faint tremor ran through Luna's body. It started deep in her chest, a rumble, a memory of a sound she hadn't made since the serpent's attack. A weak, guttural purr, raw and raspy, escaped her lips, breaking the silence of her suffering. Her eyes, which had been glassy and distant, fluttered open. For the first time in days, they held a spark, a tiny ember of recognition, of life. She struggled ever so slightly to lift her head, her gaze fixed on the source of those precious sounds. The pain was still there, a dull ache, but now, mixed with it, was something new, an urgent, undeniable sense of purpose. Her kits needed her, and in that moment the mother's spark, dimmed but not extinguished, flared back into being. Healing, they said. The giant voices cooed it, soft and lilting, a strange counterpoint to the sharp tang of antiseptic that always seemed to cling to the air around her. Luna, the bobcat, felt the warmth of the blanket beneath her, a comfort she hadn't known since before the serpent. The sharp sting of the needle, a fleeting betrayal, was always followed by a deep, numbing peace that allowed her torn flesh to knit. Water, cool and clean, appeared in a heavy bowl, tasting like rain after days of dry-mouthed terror. Food, meaty and rich, offered by a hand that was learning to be gentle, filled her aching stomach. But the peace was fractured, a fragile thing that shattered whenever he came near. He was a giant too, but different. His scent was sharp like the wild places she used to hunt, but mingled with a strange, metallic tang she couldn't place. When his shadow fell over her kennel, a primal fear seized her. Her muscles tensed. A low growl, more, a ragged cough, rumbled in her chest. Her hackles rose despite the pain it caused her healing neck. She remembered the thrashing, the scales, the burning agony. But he always wasn't the serpent. So why did her body betray her, trembling uncontrollably, urging her to flee a threat that wasn't immediately present? Sarah, the smaller, softer giant, with the reassuring scent of clean linen and faint herbs, watched Luna's reactions with a growing furrow in her brow. She'd seen fear before, profound animal terror. But this was different. Every time Elias approached, even just to talk to Sarah from a distance, Luna would flatten herself, eyes wide, pupils dilated to black pools. Her ears would swivel, twitching, listening for sounds only she could hear. It was a reaction beyond the natural wariness of a wild animal in captivity. It was panic. Sarah waited until Elias had left, until the air in the rehabilitation room felt lighter, before approaching Luna again. Gently, slowly, murmuring soothing words, she began her routine check. She ran her gloved hand over Luna's fur, feeling for new bruises, checking the healing sutures. The python's wounds were evident, deep grooves that were slowly knitting, forming raised scars. But as her fingers traced Luna's lower flank, near her back leg, she felt something else. A thin, linear scar, almost perfectly straight, partially obscured by the bobcat's ginger-brown fur and the larger, more jagged marks from the python's coils. It wasn't a bite. It wasn't a scratch from another animal. Sarah's heart began to pound a slow, heavy rhythm against her ribs. She moved her fingers higher, toward the chest, feeling for any other irregularities. And there it was. Another, fainter line, almost imperceptible. Like a thin wire had bitten deep into the flesh, then released. A snare. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. Luna's terror wasn't just the memory of the giant serpent. It was something deeper, older. The python had been a brutal, terrifying fight for survival, but these wounds, These were insidious, cruel. These were human-made. These were the marks of the poachers Elias had been tracking, the silent hunters who set their traps with such malicious indifference. The giant woman's scent shifted, becoming sharper, laced with a new emotion Luna couldn't name, but felt as a disturbance. The gentle hands paused, then moved again, softer than before, as if now understanding a deeper pain. The human voices, usually a low hum of comforting sound, seemed to have taken on a different cadence, hushed and strained. The air around the two legs crackled with unspoken tension. Sarah pulled back, her face grim. The snare wounds explained everything. Luna's profound, inexplicable fear of Elias wasn't entirely about the python. It was about humans, or rather, certain humans. The ones who hunted not for food, but for cruelty or gain. The ones who set invisible traps that choked and bled. And Elias, with his rugged outdoor clothes, his strong scent of forest and something vaguely metallic, his decisive movements, he fit the profile of the human threat Luna had already experienced. The lines blurred. Rescuer and perceived threat all tangled together in Luna's traumatized mind. A cold knot of suspicion began to form in Sarah's stomach. Elias had been hunting the poachers. He had been the one to find Luna, near where the traps were known to be. Had he seen the snares? Had he even, God forbid, been involved? No, her rational mind screamed. He was a rescuer, a good man. But Luna's raw, visceral fear spoke a different language, a language of betrayal and hidden pain. And in the quiet hum of the rehabilitation center, the true depth of Luna's trauma, trauma not just of the wild, but of human cruelty, echoed chillingly. The air in the new den was thick with unfamiliar scents, a mix of antiseptic and something vaguely sweet, yet it lacked the metallic tang of fear that had clung to the old, dangerous place. Luna the bobcat, her body still humming with a phantom ache, twitched an ear. The small, soft bodies of her kits nestled close, their tiny, unblinking eyes reflecting the warm glow of the heat lamp above them. These giants, with their booming voices and soft, warm hands, were a puzzle. They had been the source of terrifying capture, the sudden sting of a needle that had stolen her strength, but also the source of warmth and the sweet, rich taste of something nourishing that filled her aching belly. The memory of the monstrous serpent, its cold coils, its suffocating weight, was a raw wound in her mind. Every shadow, every sudden movement, threatened to morph into that scaled nightmare. Sarah watched Luna carefully from outside the enclosure, a knot of concern tightening in her stomach. The mother bobcat was still skittish, but the kits, oblivious in their nursing haze, were thriving. It was Elias's presence, however, that sent Luna into a silent, trembling panic. Sarah had seen it again and again, the subtle flattening of ears, the widening of those intelligent amber eyes, the immediate defensive posture. Luna wasn't just wary, she was terrified. Sarah had been going over the rescue reports, the details of the snare, the proximity of the poachers' makeshift camp, and then it clicked. The python, the poachers, Elias's initial discovery, the pieces, ugly and fragmented, began to fall into place. Luna's fear wasn't of Elias himself, but what he represented. The human scent linked to the trap, the proximity to the monstrous snake. Sarah moved with a deliberate slowness, her voice a soft murmur as she approached the enclosure. "Hey, pretty girl," she whispered, her gaze locked on Luna. "I get it now, don't I? You saw them, the bad guys, and Elias, he was just too close." It was a theory, but a strong one. Elias's presence, however benign, was a painful trigger. Re-establishing trust would be a delicate dance, a slow, painstaking process. Elias himself, watching from a distance, looked lost. His usual boisterous energy had dimmed since witnessing Luna's primal terror when he had inadvertently approached her enclosure. He saw more than just a scared animal. He saw a reflection of his own darkest memories. "She's still not good with me," Elias said, his voice unusually quiet as he joined Sarah. His shoulders were slumped, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. "I don't know what it is, Sarah. I try to be gentle, but She just shuts down. Sarah placed a comforting hand on his arm. It's not you, Elias. Not really. I think she associates you with the poachers, the ones who set the snares and likely owned that python. You were the first human she saw after all that trauma. Elias flinched, the words striking a nerve. The python, his voice trailed off, a haunted look entering his eyes. He didn't need to say more. The image of the enormous snake, coiled around Luna, fighting for her life, was seared into his memory. Sarah decided to focus their efforts. Elias would only interact with the kids, and only when Luna was settled, even if it meant foregoing his direct involvement with the mother for a while. The goal was to build positive associations, to slowly untangle the knot of fear. She placed a small, soft blanket near the enclosure, a temporary barrier to muffle Elias's scent while he observed the kits. We start small, Sarah explained, her voice firm but gentle. You watch them, you talk to them, quietly. Let her see that your focus isn't on her, not yet. Elias nodded, his gaze softening as he watched the kits tumble over each other, miniature versions of their fierce mother. He picked up a small, soft toy Sarah had placed out and gently dangled it near the mesh. Not too close, just enough for the kits to bat at it with clumsy paws. Luna, though still wary, didn't bolt. She watched, her body tense, but she didn't retreat into a corner. It was a minuscule victory, but a victory nonetheless. Later that evening, long after the last of the staff had left, Elias found Sarah in the small office, poring over veterinary notes. The quiet hum of the clinic was a stark contrast to the chaos of the past few days. He leaned against the doorframe, his gaze distant. You know, he started, his voice barely a whisper, seeing her like that, the sheer terror in her eyes, I had brought it all back. He pushed off the doorframe, walking to the window, staring out at the inky blackness. My sister, she was trapped in a fire. I was too young to do anything. Just watch the smoke, the flames. His voice cracked. That helplessness, that absolute gut-wrenching terror. It felt like I was watching it again with Luna. Sarah turned, her heart aching for him. She had known Elias carried a burden, but he had never spoken of it. Now it poured out, raw and unfiltered. Elias, I'm so sorry. He shook his head, a wry, painful smile playing on his lips. It's not about me being sorry. It's about understanding. Luna's trauma, it's so real, so similar. That feeling of being utterly powerless, cornered by something monstrous. I finally get it. And I need to help her, not just the kids. Her. In that quiet office, surrounded by the sleeping sounds of rescued animals, a new layer of understanding formed between them. Elias's shared vulnerability wasn't just a revelation, it was a bridge. He now saw Luna not just as a wild animal, but as a kindred spirit, scarred by a past he intimately understood. And Sarah, watching the raw pain in his eyes, knew that this shared humanity, this parallel grief, was the foundation upon which true healing for Luna, and perhaps for Elias too, could begin. Empathy bridges the gap between species and men's old wounds. For weeks, Luna the bobcat had been a coiled spring of instinct. Every twitch of Elias's hand, every shift of his weight, a potential threat. Her kits, all three bundles of spotted fluff and needle-sharp claws, were her world, and the humans, these enormous, strange creatures, were still largely unknown. The memory of the snake, a hulking menace that had threatened to snatch her babies, was a burning ember in her mind, a constant reminder of the world's dangers. The humans had been loud, chaotic, and frightening when they first arrived. But then had come the strange, sweet-smelling air that had made her heavy-lidded, and the sharp sting in her flank. Fear had turned to a muddled warmth, then to a quiet, unfamiliar den, where the constant pressure of a wound had slowly eased. Sarah, with her calm voice and slow, deliberate movements, had been the first to earn a flicker of acceptance. She brought the food that smelled of wild meat and the water that tasted clean, not stagnant like the puddles outside the den. Luna watched her, always from the shadows, assessing every gesture. But it was Elias, the quiet giant, who was now being guided by Sarah to participate more actively in the kid's care. Sarah knew that to truly mend Elias's own fractured spirit, he needed to connect, to understand the deep primal love a mother held for her young, and to see himself as a protector, not a perpetrator. Luna observed Elias with an intensity that could burn. He moved with a lumbering slowness, his large hands seeming clumsy, yet they never quite touched. He would place a small, soft blanket near the kits, never too close, and retreat, his gaze lingering. He would change out the water bowl, his movements almost reverent. The kits, bolder than their mother, would sometimes sniff at the edge of his outstretched hand, tiny noses twitching before scampering back to Luna's side, who would cuff them gently, a warning to maintain their distance. Elias, for his part, seemed to understand. He never pushed, he never rushed. He simply was there, a constant, quiet presence. His own heart, a landscape of regret and self-blame, slowly began to soften around the edges. He found solace in the soft chirps of the kits, in the wary, intelligent gaze of Luna, in the simple act of preparing their food. It was a purpose he hadn't known he needed, a gentle balm for old wounds. He started to forgive himself, not entirely, but enough to breathe again, enough to believe that perhaps he wasn't beyond redemption. The smell of human was no longer just the smell of fear. It was the smell of clean straw, of fresh food, of a strange, warm softness that sometimes appeared near her kits. Luna's instincts, honed by generations of wild living, screamed caution, but another, newer instinct, born of days of protection and quiet care, began to whisper something else: safety. She watched Elias as he spoke in low, rumbling tones to Sarah, never looking directly at her but always aware. She saw the gentle way he handled a stray feather that had drifted into the enclosure, the quiet reverence in his eyes. He wasn't a threat, not like the snake, not like the other humans she'd encountered in the past, the ones who had been loud and careless and cruel. This human, this Elias, was different. One afternoon, a week after the kits had first begun to tentatively approach Elias's outstretched hand for a sniff, Sarah was busy charting observations, and Elias was alone in the enclosure, sitting cross-legged a respectful distance from Luna's den box. The kits, emboldened by their growing comfort, were tumbling playfully near him, batting at a stray leaf. Luna watched, her body still, her ears swiveling, assessing. Elias's gaze was soft, almost yearning, as he watched the smallest kit, the one with the particularly dark spots, struggle to right itself after a clumsy roll. He reached out slowly, incredibly slowly, his large finger extending towards the tiny creature. Luna's breath caught in her throat. Every instinct screamed to bare her teeth, to snarl, to leap, to protect. But Elias's hand was so gentle, so slow. His eyes, when they briefly met hers, held no malice, only a profound, silent understanding. The little kit, unfazed by the giant, wobbly and curious, sniffed Elias's finger. And then, without warning, Luna did something that amazed even herself. She did not react. She watched. Her ears didn't flatten. Her tail didn't lash. She remained still, a statue of cautious acceptance. Elias's finger, so enormous compared to the kit, gently, almost imperceptibly, stroked the soft fur behind the kit's ear. It was a feather-light touch, barely there, yet it was monumental. A ripple went through Luna, a strange, unprecedented sensation that was not fear, not anger, but something akin to a fragile, burgeoning understanding. The giant human, the one with the quiet eyes and the gentle hands, had touched her baby, and her baby had not been harmed. In fact, the kit had leaned into the touch. A barrier, built over weeks of fear and ancient instinct, had cracked, just a sliver. Trust, a delicate, precious thing, had finally, painstakingly begun to bloom. The fight for life, so recently a raw, primal scream in the moonlit forest, was now a quiet echo. A victory not just of teeth and claws, but of something deeper, something resilient and fiercely maternal that now, in this strange new world, found room to breathe. Bobcat, the mother, felt the persistent ache in her flank, a dull throb that had replaced the searing, burning agony. Her instincts, honed by countless generations of wild survival, still screamed caution, but another, newer sensation began to override it. Comfort. The giants who had swooped in, their strange scents filling her nostrils, their hands at first terrifying, had somehow become soothing. There was the sharp prick, then the dizzying warmth that dulled the pain, the strange metallic taste of water that slid down her parched throat, cool and clean. Unlike the murky puddles of the forest, the soft material beneath her, so different from the cold, hard earth, cushioned her weary body, allowing her to truly rest for the first time in what felt like an eternity. She was safe. Her kits, small, wriggling bundles of spotted fluff, were safe. The giants, Sarah and Elias, moved with a quiet reverence around their enclosure, their voices low, their movements slow and predictable. They didn't threaten. They offered. Food, a rich, meaty smell that made her stomach rumble, presented in a shallow dish. Water, ever present. And most importantly, space. Space for her to be a mother, to clean her kits, to nurse them, to guard them with her recovering strength. The fear, a constant companion in the wild, slowly began to recede, replaced by a nascent trust. She watched Elias, the male giant, as he moved around, his presence large but never menacing. His hands, though immense, were careful, deliberate. She remembered the terror of being scooped up, the world spinning, the harsh, unnatural air. But then came the soft blanket, the gentle touch that checked her wounds, the silent reassurance. He was the one who often brought the richest meat, the one who replenished her water, the one who sat quietly just outside the mesh, simply watching. He never pushed, he never demanded, he simply was. And in his unwavering presence, Bobcat felt the rigid knots of tension in her muscles begin to loosen. Her body, a testament to her fierce will to survive, mended with remarkable speed. The sting of the antibacterial wipes, at first a shock, now felt like a familiar ritual, followed by the comforting coolness of the salve. The wound, once a gaping, angry red, slowly closed, knitting together, forming a smooth, raised scar beneath her soft fur. She stretched, testing her muscles, feeling the renewed power in her limbs. The small enclosure, initially a prison, began to feel like a haven. Her kits, now venturing out from her protective embrace, tumbled and pounced on each other, their miniature roars a charming, unthreatening sound. She watched them, a deep satisfaction filling her. They were thriving. Then came the day. A new scent, a new texture, a branch brought by Sarah, fragrant with the smell of the forest, placed carefully in their enclosure. Bobcat sniffed it, a rush of memories flooding her. The hunt, the trees, the freedom. But she also remembered danger, the hunger, the giant snake. She looked at her kits, then back at the branch. Her instinct, so long focused on protection, now allowed a flicker of playfulness. One of her kits, emboldened, swatted at a dangling leaf. Bobcat watched, a tremor of an old suppressed joy running through her. And then, without thought, she was there. A quick pounce, a soft bat with a paw, not unlike how she would hunt a mouse. But this was different. This was pure, unadulterated play. She batted at the toy mouse Sarah had brought, a soft, fuzzy thing that bounced and skittered across the floor. Her kits, seeing their mother's sudden burst of energy, joined in, a flurry of tiny paws and playful nips. Bobcat rolled onto her back, exposing her belly in a rare moment of vulnerability, playfully wrestling with one of her kits, nipping gently at its ear. The ache in her flank was a distant memory. Her strength, once dedicated to survival, was now channeled into pure, joyful interaction. Her purrs, deep and resonant, filled the enclosure, a stark contrast to the guttural growls of her past. She was a mother, whole and vibrant, playing with her healthy, thriving offspring. The wildness still pulsed within her, but now it was tempered by the gentle hand of healing and the profound, unexpected gift of trust. The wild calls, but a new protector stands guard. The air for Luna and her kits was no longer thick with the lingering scent of disinfectant or the distant hum of human voices. It was alive, vibrating with the rustle of leaves, the earthy scent of damp soil, and the faint, intoxicating musk of prey. Their days of soft blankets and readily offered meals were drawing to a close, replaced by an instinctual summons to a world both familiar and terrifyingly new. Elias, the giant who had once seemed a harbinger of pain but had slowly transformed into a source of unwavering comfort, moved with a quiet purpose. Luna remembered the first days, a blur of strange smells and the sharp sting of needles, followed by a blissful, hazy warmth. She'd woken to the sensation of soft bedding beneath her paws, the dull throb of her wounds steadily receding. The humans, with their towering forms and booming voices, had at first been a source of primal fear. She'd hissed, batted, and clawed, so driven by the memory of sharp fangs and the brutal struggle to protect her tiny, blind bundles of fur. But then came the gentle hands, the soft murmurs, and the surprisingly delicious offerings of meat and water. Slowly, painstakingly, the terror had given way to a hesitant understanding, then a fragile trust. Her kits, bolder than she, having known only the safety of the human's den, were restless. Their tiny bodies, no longer fragile and dependent, twitched with a nascent energy, their miniature snarls and playful pounces echoing the wild instincts now stirring within them. They had grown, their spotted coats thicker, their claws sharper, their eyes, once milky and sightless, now bright and curious. Elias had spent weeks preparing them, introducing them to live prey, teaching them the subtle art of the stalk and the kill within the confines of a large naturalistic enclosure. He'd mimicked the forest's sounds, diffused the sense of various wild animals, and even brought in logs and branches for them to practice climbing and hiding. Sarah, the gentler of the two giants, would often sit by the enclosure, speaking in a low, soothing voice, her presence a silent assurance. The day of freedom was heralded by a new kind of crate, larger and more open than the one that had first brought them to the human's den. Luna was hesitant, her hackles rising at the sudden change in routine, but Elias, his voice a low rumble, coaxed her with a piece of her favorite chicken, guiding her and her increasingly rambunctious kits into the familiar confinement. The journey was short, bumpier than the previous one, and filled with a symphony of new, exhilarating smells. When the door finally opened, it wasn't into another room, but into an expanse of green, a vastness that stretched out, limitless and beckoning. They stepped out one by one into a glade dappled with sunlight. The air here was pristine, untainted by the faint human scent that always clung to the rehabilitation center. Trees, ancient and gnarled, towered above them, their branches heavy with leaves. The ground beneath their paws was soft, rich earth, yielding slightly with each step. Water, cool and clear, burbled nearby, a promise of sustenance. Elias and Sarah, distant now, watched from behind a screen of foliage, their forms almost swallowed by the wilderness. They had scattered food, rabbits, squirrels, and even a fresh deer carcass throughout the immediate vicinity, a final generous offering to ease their transition. Luna, ever cautious, led her kits deeper into the undergrowth, her senses overwhelmed by the symphony of the forest. Every rustle was a potential threat, every shadow a hiding place. But beneath the fear, a powerful current of exhilaration coursed through her. This was home. This was where she belonged. This was the freedom she had fought so fiercely for. As she moved, a slight itch on her neck reminded her of the last gentle prod from Elias. He had attached a tiny, almost imperceptible device there, along with micro cameras hidden in inconspicuous spots throughout their released territory. Not to control her, not to cage her spirit, but to watch over her, to ensure her survival in this vast, unpredictable world. It was a promise, unspoken but deeply felt, a promise that even in the wild, she was not forgotten, and her well-being was still cherished. It was a bridge between the world of humans and the world of the wild, a testament to a trust forged in pain and solidified in compassion. The scent of pine needles and damp earth, a symphony of crickets, and the rustle of unseen leaves. It all hit Luna, the bobcat, like a tidal wave. For weeks, the world had been a blur of sterile smells, soft blankets that smelled faintly of human, and the unsettling proximity of giant, soft-spoken creatures. Now the cool air on her whiskers was real, the textured bark beneath her paws a forgotten pleasure. This was home, or at least it felt like home, a wild embrace after an eternity of quiet confinement. The giant ones, Elias and Sarah, stood a respectful distance away, their forms looming but no longer terrifying. Luna remembered the first moments of capture, the terrifying thud of the trap door, the frantic thrashing against metal that bruised her spirit more than her body. Then came the strange, sharp sting in her flank, followed by a blissful, heavy drowsiness that stole the fear, replacing it with a fuzzy warmth. When she awoke, the pain in her leg, the constant ache from the python's constriction, was dulled, replaced by the odd sensation of a soft bandage. The giant female, Sarah, had gently stroked her head, a touch that initially made every instinct scream to flee, but which, over days, became a curious source of comfort, a quiet reassurance that food and water would always follow. Her kits, small bundles of striped fur and boundless energy, tumbled out of the carrier first, their tiny paws testing the yielding ground. They chirped and squeaked, already half-forgotten instincts pulling them toward the thick undergrowth. Luna watched them, a maternal instinct overriding the wild desire to vanish. But something held her. A silent question hung in the air, directed at the two giants who had mended her, fed her, kept her kits safe while she healed. Elias stood motionless, his heart a drum against his ribs. He had spent weeks poring over Luna's progress, watching her fierce spirit return as her wounds healed. He'd seen the hunger in her eyes as she devoured the carefully prepared meals, the protective snarl when anyone came too close to her den, even as he tended her wounds. He understood her, or at least he tried to. This moment, however, felt different. Luna wasn't bolting. She was, observing, weighing. It was a silent conversation, a negotiation of trust in the vast, unforgiving wilderness. The forest floor felt both alien and intimately familiar. The rustle of dry leaves under her paws was a melody she had almost forgotten. The sharp scent of a distant deer, a sudden jolt of memory. She stretched, feeling the supple strength return to her muscles, the faint itch of healing scars a reminder of the battle she'd fought, the babies she'd protected. The giants had been there then too, their loud voices and strange lights initially terrifying. But ultimately, they had freed her from the serpent's coiled menace. They had given her a second chance, a quiet understanding of what it meant to be cared for, even by creatures so fundamentally different. A faint chirrup from one of her kits, already venturing too far, stirred her. It was time. But first, there was something she had to do. An instinct, soft but insistent, guided her. She turned, her green eyes fixing on Elias. He stood still, a towering oak, unmoving, his gaze steady and unwavering. He wasn't a threat. He was different. Luna took a slow, deliberate step towards Elias. Every wild fiber of her being screamed to run, to disappear into the protective embrace of the trees. But another, newer instinct, born of soft hands and warm food and the quiet presence that healed, urged her forward. She reached him, her head barely coming up to his knee, and then, in a gesture that transcended the gulf between their species, Luna the bobcat leaned in. She rubbed her head against his leg, a soft, purring vibration rumbling deep in her chest, a sound Elias hadn't thought a wild bobcat capable of making. It was a fleeting touch, a feather-light brush of trust and gratitude, a wild embrace. Then as suddenly as it began, it was over. Luna turned, a flash of tawny fur, and with a silent grace vanished into the thicket, her kits a blur of motion behind her. The forest swallowed them whole. Elias stood there for a long moment, the ghost of her fur still tingling on his leg. He was no longer just a rescuer. He was a guardian. He would watch over this patch of wild, a silent promise to Luna, a commitment to the wild embrace they had shared. The work was never truly done, but for now he had witnessed a rare, beautiful glimpse of trust, a bond forged in pain and healed by compassion, now returned to the heart of the wild. A mother's resilience, a ranger's redemption, an enduring legend. The forest, once a place of lurking shadows and primal fears, now resonated with a different kind of heartbeat, the steady rhythm of life thriving, protected. Luna the bobcat, a name whispered among the rustling leaves, had become more than just a survivor. She was a symbol. Her story, a testament to the fierce, unyielding power of maternal love, had taken root, growing with each passing season. Luna, now with her thriving family, moved through the underbrush with an almost regal confidence. Her kittens, the tiny, vulnerable bundles she had once shielded with her very life, now tumbled and pounced, their instincts sharpening with each playful skirmish. They knew the gentle caress of the wind through their fur, the soft earth beneath their paws, and the rich, clean taste of fresh water. They knew no hunger, no terror of the giant, scaled predator that had once threatened to extinguish their future. Their world was safe, a sanctuary carved out by their mother's courage and the surprising, sometimes clumsy, but ultimately kind intervention of the giants. Those giants, once terrifying in their sheer size and strange smells, had transformed. The initial confusion of being scooped up, the startling pinch of a needle that brought on a dizzying sleep, the strange metallic scent of the den they were confined in, all of that was a distant memory. The sting had always been followed by warmth, the confusion by a gentle touch, the fear by the undeniable offer of food and water. Luna remembered the ache in her jaw from hunger, the parched rasp in her throat, and then the sudden, glorious taste of a juicy morsel placed carefully near her snout, accompanied by the cool, pure water that quenched the fire in her throat. The massive, blurry shapes that loomed over her had learned to move slowly, to speak in soft, low rumblings, their gigantic hands offering not harm, but sustenance and comfort. Itias, the ranger who had once carried the heavy weight of a different kind of loss, found his life's true calling in the quiet vigilance of safeguarding the wild. The hollow ache that had once resided in his chest had slowly, painstakingly filled with a purpose greater than himself. He had become a silent protector, his footsteps barely disturbing the fallen leaves as he patrolled, his eyes scanning for signs of trouble, his heart attuned to the needs of the forest and its inhabitants. The memory of the tragic event that had nearly broken him still lingered, a phantom limb of grief, but it was now overlaid with the vibrant, living tapestry of Luna's story. He saw in her resilience a reflection of his own burgeoning hope. The forest, in its vast, intricate wisdom, seemed to hum with their shared narrative, a testament to love, perseverance, and compassion. It echoed through the rustling leaves, carried on the breath of the wind, a living legend of how even the deepest wounds, whether a gaping gash from a monstrous snake or the invisible scars of human sorrow, could heal with empathy and unwavering care. Yet Elias knew that Luna's fight, her fierce determination to protect her young, was a universal language, a reminder of the preciousness of life. It was this understanding that spurred him to action beyond his daily patrols. In a heartfelt tribute to the very family he had lost, Elias established a foundation. It was named not just in memory of Luna, but in honor of all creatures who, like her, faced overwhelming odds. The Evergreen Sanctuary was Riksubarshwani, it was called, a name that spoke of enduring life and unwavering protection. Dedicated to wildlife rescue and anti-poaching efforts, the foundation became a beacon of hope. Its mission was simple yet profound, to ensure that Luna's story, her legacy of hope and survival, would inspire generations to come, reminding them that every life held inherent value and every act of compassion, no matter how small, could weave a tapestry of enduring hope in the wild heart of the world. If this story touched your heart, comment 1 if you're moved or 0 if you're speechless. Thanks for watching until the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more magical stories. See you next time.